as the days go on, it looks like some people are souring on the prospect of the Switch 2. The question now is, what did Nintendo do this time around? Well, let's break that all down. Up next. What's going on, guys? It's Kalo, and I'm here to give you the lowdown on all things gaming. And if you're new here, feel free to subscribe to this channel for weekly video game news content. Drop a like on the video, and welcome to the Level Up. The highs and lows of the week are very much felt within the world of gaming, and more specifically in the world of Nintendo. Leading up to the Switch 2 Direct, the electricity was in the air, and this is all coming off the heels of the third best-selling video game console of all time in the Switch 1. So you'd think the Switch 2 could do no wrong at this point, and the fumbling of that momentum couldn't possibly happen. But maybe it did. All that people are talking about now in regards to the Switch 2 is its fairly high price point along with its games. But you guys know, I think the console itself is fairly priced. I also want to make it clear, I'm not doing cartwheels over the fact I gotta pay damn near $500 for a console, and if I had to pick, it'd be around $200. But again, for what we're getting here in the Switch 2 and the games that do come with it, I think it's fine. But across the gaming industry, history has repeated itself. And to that, I look back to the PS2, which was the best-selling video game console ever made, to the PS3. In that situation, PlayStation priced themselves too high. And following all that, they regretted every second. If we are just talking about Nintendo, let's look at the DS to the 3DS. The same damn thing happened there, and this is because companies think they could price the successor to a popular console higher. You know, because why not? Mostly everyone and their mother love Nintendo games, and Nintendo of all companies might be the ones to break this curse and still set sales records despite how loud, and I mean loud, conversation is around this price tag. Now, at first, talk was just limited to various posts on social media and a few news articles here and there. This hysteria was merited, but because this is the internet, there's a few bits of news that are straight up uninformed and they've kind of been jumbled, so I'm kind of here to set the record straight on a few things. So this part pertains to the Switch 2 game keycards. This is basically where you get a physical Switch 2 game without getting the game itself on the card. Instead, it acts as a key, hence the name, that will unlock a download, and people are freaking out over this. This is where games preservation is heavily called into question, and this is a problem that spans all of gaming. But in reality, these game cards will be easier to share, and you can give them to whoever you want. You can also resell them, unlike digital games. What I do think is the bigger issue here that we should really look into is how often this practice will be implemented, especially within Nintendo games, and for that, less is more. Now let me throw in some good news here about the Switch 2 and its performance, seeing how there's a lot of people questioning that bit of the console as well. Nvidia recently shared some information about this all, and according to them, the Switch 2 will have AI image upscaling through DLSS. It will have ray tracing with dedicated RT cores and tensor cores, and it will be 10 times the graphics performance of the Switch 1, along with AI-powered face tracking and background removal for video chat. Last but not least, it's also getting variable refresh rates through Nvidia G-Sync. This is where I tend to be more positive about the Switch 2 and what it could do for brand new games and older ones. Third-party companies are heavily supporting the Switch 2, and it's for this exact reason. This is all because it will be a pretty capable machine, and I kind of link it closer to that of a PS4. People need to understand this is a handheld console as well, but it will have access to 4K, 120 frames per second, HDR and ray tracing, and that's things we haven't seen from newer platforms. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is, on paper, the Switch 2 will be a far better console than that of the Switch 1, which is what most of us wanted from a Switch successor, despite the battery life. I'm still mad about that one. Speaking of being mad, let's get back into the negative in regards to the Switch 2 and some of its game prices. This is something I am down on in regards to the Switch 2, simply because Switch 2 games, at least from what I've seen, don't come close to that of a GTA 6 or even Call of Duty, which those games tend to normally warrant that premium. Since the initial wave of news, we now know Mario Kart World is not Nintendo's only $80 game. So here is a bunch of prices for all things Switch 2, and you can see the prices for the games are kind of all over the place. But if you look down to Switch 2 edition games like Kirby and the Forgotten Land, Mario Party Jamboree, and Tears of the Kingdom, they are all $80 as well. Which, if you ask me, I think that's pretty insane to think about in the grand scheme of things. Now, looking at this from Nintendo and Nintendo's view only, these games are still $60. Factor in the upgrade package and some new content here and there, and that might push this over the $80 line for Nintendo. But me personally looking at all this, I still think this is pretty dumb on Nintendo's part, because prices on all those Switch 1 games should have dropped a very long time ago. And they really shouldn't even be $60 damn near 8 years after they release a game. Now, a nice workaround to all this, if you buy a used copy of these games, like any of them mentioned above, then you're just gonna have to buy the upgrade package and that's it. Now, there's one more cherry on top for the Switch 2 talk today, and that's what's actually going on Nintendo's Treehouse events that are going on right now. And this is all pertaining to the YouTube chat, where that chat's been buzzing. Basically, what's going on in that chat was the constant spamming of the phrase drop the price or slash the price. And this was a very steady flow of how often these messages popped up. I was watching along throughout all these events, and it was very rare to see an actual message on how good the games looked or the hype around Nintendo. So it's safe to say that chat was definitely seen by the higher ups. Alright, so I was editing today's video, and oddly enough, a major story just dropped in regards to the Switch 2 and pre-orders, so we're gonna kind of dive into that right now. So there is an official statement that was released by Nintendo today, and it read, quote, "Pre-orders for the Nintendo Switch 2 in the US will not start on April 9th, 2025, in order to assess the potential impact of tariffs and evolving market conditions. Nintendo will update the timing at a later date, and the launch date of June 5th, 2025 is still unchanged." So I guess here in the US, we're gonna have to wait a little bit longer to pre-order our Switch 2s, but that June 5th release date is still unchanged. But wow, that's insane to see. I don't know, it's just crazy times we live in for the Switch 2, and you would have thought, man, this is all gonna be exciting. But again, it's Nintendo, so they were bound to throw a wrench in the plans somewhere. But with all that being said, I'm gonna pass it off to you guys. What do you think about all this? But that about does it here. I've been K-Lo, I gave you the lowdown on all things gaming, and if you're new here, feel free to subscribe to this channel for weekly video game news content. Drop a like on the video, and this has been the Level Up.